independent VPT energy validation and topological transformation of a coordinated physiological phase transition, number 1684, VPT 134, June 14, 2026, Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation. Category Stroke. Preface for readers: eat more protein and vegetables. Eat less red meat and processed food. Reduce portions if overweight. Eating a little less will not hurt you, overeating for years will. Exercise daily. Walk at least 7,000 to 8,000 steps. Drink 85 to 100 ounces to 0.5 to 3.0 liters of water daily. Sleep 6 to 7 hours each night. Manage stress. Avoid draining people and unnecessary conflicts. Put your health first. Wealth, fame, and power mean little without health and life. Introduction. This study provides an independent validation of the physiological transition identified by the TSI Stroke model through a completely different mathematical framework based on Viscoplastic Medicine Theory (VMT) and viscoplastopological framework (VPT), instead of integrating metabolic variables. The VMT energy analysis focuses exclusively on vascular mechanics using pulse pressure (pp), mean arterial pressure (MAP), and systolic blood pressure (SBP). Despite this different construction, it arrives at the same physiological conclusion. The objective is not to determine which blood pressure variable is most important but to understand how their combined evolution describes the mechanical state of the vascular system before and after a hemorrhagic stroke. Balanced contributions of the three mechanical components. The VMT analysis demonstrates that pulse pressure (pp), mean arterial pressure (MAP), and systolic blood pressure (SBP) contribute almost equally to total vascular mechanical loading. PP contribution, 34.29%, MAP contribution, 33.44%, SBP contribution, 30.26%. The nearly equal distribution indicates that vascular loading could be viewed as the combined effect of three complementary mechanical components rather than being dominated by any single variable. From an engineering perspective, PP represents cyclic or pulsatile loading, MAP represents steady or continuous arterial loading, SBP represents peak instantaneous loading during ventricular contraction. Together, these three variables provide a balanced description of vascular mechanics throughout the cardiac cycle. Normalization validates the mechanical framework. Using reference values of PP equals 45 mmHg, MAP equals 85 mmHg, and SBP equals 120 mmHg. The normalized averages are PP equals 1.06, MAP equals 1.02, SBP equals 0.99. These values are remarkably close to unity, confirming that the selected reference values provide balanced weighting among the three mechanical components and provide an internal validation of the VMT normalization framework. In addition, the corresponding statistical correlations with TSI Stroke are PP, R equals 0.93, MAP, R equals 0.76. SBP, R equals 0.88. All three correlations are high, indicating that each mechanical variable evolves closely with TSI Stroke throughout the study period. Pulse pressure exhibits the strongest association, followed by systolic blood pressure and mean arterial pressure, although the correlation strengths differ. All three variables participate in the same coordinated physiological trajectory and collectively describe the evolution of vascular mechanical loading before and after the hemorrhagic stroke. Evolution of vascular loading. The trajectories of PP, MAP, and SBP evolve synchronously throughout the study period from 2024 Q2 through 2026 Q2. All three variables remain relatively stable during 2024, increase progressively during early 2025, and reach their highest levels immediately before the hemorrhagic stroke on June 21, 2025. Following the stroke, they decline together and stabilize at consistently lower values. This coordinated behavior suggests that the three variables describe different aspects of the same underlying vascular mechanical system rather than independent physiological processes. Cumulative VMT energy reveals the major transition. Most striking finding emerges from the cumulative VMT energy analysis during the stroke quarter 2005 K2. Cumulative energy represents only 25.98% of its eventual trajectory in the first complete quarter. After the stroke 2005 Q3, however, cumulative energy increases abruptly to 80.73%. This increase of nearly 55 percentage points is by far the largest transition observed in the entire dataset and cannot be explained as gradual recovery alone. Instead, The data indicate that the principal physiological transformation occurred between 2025 Q2 and 2025 Q3, during which the vascular system reorganized into a different operating state. From an engineering viewpoint, this behavior resembles redistribution of accumulated viscoplastic stress-strain energy following a critical structural event. The hemorrhagic stroke therefore appears to mark the boundary between two distinct dynamical regimes rather than simply the endpoint of progressive deterioration. Independent validation of the physiological pivot. The independent VMT analysis converges with the previously developed TSI Stroke framework despite being derived from different mathematical principles. 5 independent analyses identify the same transition interval: TSI Stroke trajectory, pulse pressure trajectory, and mean arterial pressure trajectory, systolic blood pressure trajectory, cumulative VMT energy. All point to the same physiological pivot centered between 2025 Q2 and 2025 Q3. The agreement among these independent mathematical descriptions strongly supports the interpretation that the observed changes reflect coordinated system-wide reorganization rather than isolated variation in individual biomarkers. VPT results, topological pivot, and post-stroke physiological reorganization as shown on the attached figures. The VPT topological analysis results reveal that the hemorrhagic stroke was not an isolated event but the center of a coordinated system-wide transition occurring between 2025 Q2 and 2025 Q3. This conclusion is consistently supported by 3D trajectory, 2D radar topology, and quantitative VMT physics engineering energy analysis. From 2024 Q2 through 2025 Q1, the physiological system followed a gradual upward trajectory. TSI-3B increased from 97.54 to 105.31, pulse pressure PP increased from 49.47 to 51.67 mmHg, mean arterial pressure MAP increased from 84.69 to 91.4 mmHg, and systolic blood pressure SBP increased from 117.67 to 125.85 mmHg. The 4 variables moved synchronously, indicating progressive accumulation of vascular mechanical loading before the hemorrhagic stroke event on June 21, 2025. The stroke occurred at the D&D of 2025 Q2, but the topological diagrams demonstrate that this quarter still retained much of the pre-stroke physiological state and energy. Although the variables had begun to decline, they remained close to their peak values, suggesting that the biological system had not yet completed its transition. The true pivot occurred during the interval between 2025 Q2 and 2025 Q3. During this single quarter, every major variable shifted downward simultaneously. TSI-3B fell from 100.67 to 93.76, PP decreased from 50.10 to 45.85 mmHg, MAP declined from 90.39 to 87.23 mmHg, and SBP decreased from 123.79 to 117.79 mmHg. The synchronized movement of all 4 biomedical variables produced a distinct bend in the 3D trajectory and a marked contraction of the 2D radar polygon, providing visual evidence of a coordinated physiological reorganization rather than random fluctuation. The cumulative VMT energy analysis in combination with the topological analysis reinforce this physiological interpretation. During 2025 Q2, cumulative energy reached only approximately 26% of its eventual trajectory. In the following quarter, 2025 Q3, it increased abruptly to approximately 81%, representing the largest transition observed in the entire dataset. This remarkable distribution suggests that the principal biological transformation occurred after the acute hemorrhagic event rather than at the instant of vascular rupture. Equally important, the post-stroke trajectory did not return to its original pathway. Instead, from 2025 Q3 through 2026 Q2, the system stabilized within a new operating regime characterized by consistently lower PP, MAP, SBP, and TSI-3B values. The 3D topology therefore demonstrates path dependence. The recovery trajectory occupies a different region of state space rather than retracing the pre-stroke route. The 2D radar chart provides an intuitive confirmation of this phenomenon. The polygon representing 2025 Q2 remains relatively expanded, reflecting the elevated mechanical loading during the stroke period. By 2025 Q3, the polygon contracts substantially, and by 2026 Q2 it becomes even smaller and more stable. The progressive reduction in polygon size visually represents the decrease in overall vascular mech Ankle stress and supports the interpretation that the cardiovascular system enter at a lower energy equilibrium. An additional observation is the remarkable synchronization among the three mechanical variables. PP, MAP, and SPP contribute 34.29%, 33.44%, and 30.26% of total VMT stress-strain energy, respectively, demonstrating nearly equal participation in vascular loading. Likewise, normalization using reference values of PP equals 45 mmHg, MAP equals 85 mmHg, and SPP equals 120 mmHg produces balanced scaling factors of 1.06, 1.02, and 0.99, confirming that no single component dominates the overall mechanical behavior. Taken together, the three-dimensional topology, radar geometry, and cumulative VMT energy all converge on the same conclusion. The interval between 2025 Q2 and 2025 Q3 represents the principal physiological pivot of the study, rather than simply recovering from injury. The body underwent coordinated biomechanical and physiological reorganization, establishing a new equilibrium with lower vascular mechanical loading. From the perspective of viscoplastic energy theory, the hemorrhagic stroke served as the boundary between two distinct operating regimes, with the post-stroke trajectory representing the emergence of a fundamentally different and more stable physiologic state. Conclusion: the VMT energy analysis provides an independent confirmation that my body underwent a coordinated physiological phase transition during the hemorrhagic stroke period between 2025 Q2 and 2025 Q3. Pulse pressure, mean arterial pressure, and systolic blood pressure contribute almost equal to vascular mechanical loading, with contributions of 34.29%, 33.44%, and 30.26%. Respectively. Their normalized values of 1.06, 1.02, and 0.99 further demonstrate that the mechanical framework is internally balanced. The most compelling evidence comes from cumulative VMT energy, which increases abruptly from 25.98% during the stroke quarter of 2025 Q to 80.73% in the following quarter of 2025 Q3. This dramatic redistribution indicates that the major physiological transformation occurred after the acute neurological event as the body established a new equilibrium, with substantially lower vascular mechanical loading. Taken together, these independent math physics analyses converge on a single conclusion: the hemorrhagic stroke represented a topological boundary separating two physiological operating regimes, and the subsequent reorganization due to fundamentally different mechanical state rather than a simple return to the previous condition. This article also demonstrates the close relationship between neuroscience and cardiology, that coordinated changes in vascular mechanics of blood vessels following the hemorrhagic stroke and brain suggest that neuroplasticity and cardiovascular regulation are tightly interconnected. In my case, an injury in the brain was followed by measurable and persistent changes in my overall vascular system, implying that adaptation in one organ can reorganize function in another. This represents a profound systems-level observation and illustrates a fundamental difference between medicine and engineering. Biological systems possess the capacity for neuroplasticity and self-reorganization, whereas engineered systems generally do not. In engineering, when a bridge or an aircraft wing undergoes plastic deformation, it cannot repair itself. Once the material yields, the structure is permanently altered and will eventually fail unless an external engineer intervenes. The human body is fundamentally different. Following injury, the brain can reorganize itself through neuroplasticity, and this reorganization can propagate through neural, hormonal, and autonomic pathways to influence the cardiovascular system, metabolism, and other physiological functions. In effect, the body serves simultaneously as both the structure being repaired and the engineer performing the repair. This unique capacity for self-reorganization distinguishes two different living systems, and may represent one of the most profound differences between medicine and engineering. I have spent decades loving both disciplines, engineering for its precision, predictability, and theoretical foundations, and medicine for the extraordinary ability of living systems to adapt, reorganize, and heal themselves through self-healing and neuroplasticity. Disclaimer: write this paper not for fame, but to share what I have learned so others can understand their health, prevent disease, and live longer, healthier lives. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No. doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C.